Okay, this is kind of exciting because you're like the first person I've interviewed for Je-Ree Reviews Media.
What up, Je-Ree Reviews Media? I'm
Yes.
in.
Yay. Thanks for being here, Ned Donovan.
Yo, I'm thrilled to be here. Let's do it. Let's
Let's do
dive
it.
in.
All right, we're gonna be talking about all
I
things.
unplugged my headphones. Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
I heard nothing you said after okay, let's do it.
As we're gonna be talking about all things your podcast and your
Right.
show. So let's talk about the podcast first.
Well, so hey, I'm Ned. I'm an actor. I'm a producer. I'm a video editor. I'm a writer. I'm a sound designer. I'm a mix engineer. I do a lot of stuff. I have a degree in musical theater, and that's mostly where I spend my time.
Mhm.
And I also happen to have about God, what year is it now? 5 years ago now, 6 years ago now, I created a podcast that is professional actors improvising an epic fantasy drama in real time by playing Dungeons and Dragons on microphone. That show is called Encounter Party. It is available wherever you get your podcasts. There are 3 seasons available now. Each episode is about an hour long. It averages about 55 minutes, and it is a fantasy mystery thriller improvised in real time by the random rolls of dice for you on a microphone. It's a blast. And we did 3 seasons of that show, 66 episodes. Each season's, 21, 22 episodes. We get the entire cast together and we record a season in 5 to 7 days. We just play the game straight for 5 to 7 straight days. And then we spend the next 3 to 6 months editing that down into the final product that you hear on the podcast. So we did 3 seasons of a show. And then we actually sold the project to Hasbro as a partnership, and we made a Dungeons and Dragons television show that is the cast of my podcast plus Mr. Kari Payton from The Walking Dead.
Mm.
And the show is 7 professional actors on a soundstage improvising a fantasy mystery thriller right in front of you by playing Dungeons and Dragons on camera. It is broadcast ready. Each episode is an hour long. If you consume this kind of media, you know a lot of our contemporaries have longer shows, so our show is meant to be very accessible for anybody. It is meant to be a show that whether or not you know Dungeons and Dragons doesn't matter. You're going to get invested in the story right off the bat. And it is a mystery thriller prestige fantasy show that you can watch right now on demand on Plex. That's my TV show. That's the podcast that spawned the TV show. Secondarily, I am the host of and a producer of daily tips that may or may not help you. My podcast, along with Ariel Nissenblatt, known of Descript and Earbuds Media, we give a tip of the day, Monday through Friday. We take the weekends off, of a tip that may or may not help you. Each
That is
episode is under 2 minutes long. It's very quick and easy. It's a great way to kick off your morning.
that is insane. That's such a mouthful. But yes, it's on Plex for free. You can stream for free. Yeah, I've watched, some of the episodes, and you have a Discord too where the
I
fans
do. I got a Discord where our fans interact. We've got a Facebook group where our fans interact. We released the podcast, and on our 3rd day of release, we were in the top 10 shows of the Apple Podcast New and Noteworthy for the gaming category. And that's sort of how we started. And we ended up building this very large international fan base. Encounter Party, the TV show, is only currently available inside the United States unless you use a VPN. I'm allowed to say that, apparently. You can watch it. You just need to use a VPN. It is on demand on Plex. It's free. You don't have to sign up for anything. Go to the website that's probably in the show notes or in the link, or head to encounterparty.com, and the link is right there, ready
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, because I remember when VPNs weren't like
You
legal.
can't say it.
And I used to watch that TV show, that old TV show Merlin, that was a British show. I used to VPN that so hard.
Totally. And like, I mean, I don't know that I'm supposed to say it, but look, a lot of my fans of my TV show watch it using a VPN. So I guess yell at them. I don't know.
Yeah. That's so dope. So like, how did you get Kari from Walking Dead?
Kari was an interesting one. So when we expanded the show from audio to video, we had to make a really stupid decision. And when I say stupid, I mean a visual decision we'd never really thought of, which is Dungeons and Dragons is a dungeon master for us. That's Brian David Judkins, my co-producer. And then it's players. And we had a show of 6, which means we had a dungeon master and 5 players. And when we sat down and looked at photos of us recording, on one side of Brian was 2 people, and on one side of Brian was 3 people. And it was ugly to look at on camera. And we went, oh, we have to add a person. Like there has to be 3 on each side. We need a new person. And so, look, none of y'all have heard of me. That's a fact. I'm, a blue collar actor here in New York City, and I've done some stuff, and some people know who I am, and some people don't. And we said, if this show's gonna, really make a splash, why not go out and try and get somebody with a bigger career and a bigger name and things like that?
Yeah.
And so we put together a list of names that we were really interested in. Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, our partners in the TV show, also put together a list of names that they were really interested in. We kind of cross-referenced the lists and narrowed it down to who was on both. And then we started calling people. We called agents, we called managers. If we knew people directly, we gave them a call. And we ended up meeting with a ton of really cool people who I absolutely can't name. But we met with Kari, and we instantly got off the call with Kari, and we called Hasbro, and we were like, I don't know what we need to do. Hire that guy.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's awesome.
Yeah.
We want to work
Yeah.
with him. And so then we called him and we gave him the offer, and he said, like, yeah, contingent on like the vibes being right, basically. And so
Mhm.
we all jumped on a Zoom call on like a Thursday and played a Dungeons and Dragons game together just for fun. And
Yeah.
we all went, oh, the vibes are great. But so, like, we always joked in the podcast, half of our cast met each other for the first time the day we recorded the first episode,
Mm.
because we cast it all over the country, and half of our teams in New York and LA and Chicago and Milwaukee. We met Kari the basically 20 minutes before the first episode filmed. Like, we talked online, but we'd never met him in person. And
Yeah.
we were really stressed that like he wasn't gonna be the guy. Like, we'd get there and like we wouldn't all like each other, and it'd be really awkward and whatever. And like day one, minute one, Kari like slams in on the table. He's doing incredible work. He's vibing with
Mhm.
everyone. And we got we did a casting process. I feel like we did our due diligence, but we got really lucky with Kari Payne.
Yeah. Because his like he does those voices. He's such a great voice
Crazy.
actor
Ugh,
as well, he's great in Walking Dead. But like, as a geek, like I know him
totally.
because,
And he
voice
comes in
acting.
like he comes from a theater background, and
Yeah.
everyone in my show has a theater degree. So we all kind of lived in that space. Like,
Mhm.
Dungeons and Dragons is very theatrical because you have to imagine it. So all of the everything we're doing as actors is so much bigger. It's much more Shakespearean than
Yeah.
like a TV show where you have to be like sultry and quiet
Yeah.
and like don't do too much. But in Dungeons and Dragons, you kind of have to do way too much. And so like having someone who really understood the assignment walking in the door was, I mean, perfect. And that's how we got Kari. We literally had him on a short list. We called probably 15 to 20 people. We probably interviewed 8 to 10 of those people. And the moment we talked to Kari, we were like, oh, this is the guy. Stop the search, call everyone and say it's off. Give Kari the job.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so much fun. So like, okay, so someone like me, like I know Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't know how to play that game at all.
Sure.
Like, how easy is it for someone to follow that doesn't?
Easy. So easy. And that's always been our goal. Like, we want to be a show. I've been playing this game since I was 8 years old, right? Like, I've been in on this game for a very long time. Most of us at this table have at least been playing for a decade. And when we were putting together this whole thing, we said, like, we don't want to make a show that's only for D&D diehards. That's just not fun.
Yeah.
Also, like, my biggest project prior to this is an action comedy rock musical about vampire slayers. Like, I make weird art for weird people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if we're going to make this show, why not make it exciting to anyone who likes to use their imagination, who likes fantasy?
Mhm.
And so we always say, look, the game is there, but if it matters, we explain it. Otherwise, the only thing we ask of you is go on the journey. Get invested in the characters, get invested in the story. You'll learn the game by osmosis. I tell this story. There's a woman, she's in Ireland. Her name is Kate O'Shaughnessy, and Katie Shocks on YouTube. She's a
Mhm.
huge Kari Payton fan. And so when we announced that we were doing it, she was like, oh, I want to do reactions to this show. And we were like, great, we would love that. So
I
she
know her.
fires it
She
up.
does the Walking Dead.
Yeah, she does the
Yes,
Walking
yes, I
Dead
know her. I know her.
reactions. She
Yes, yes,
also
yes,
did
yes.
Encounter Party reactions.
Mhm.
And in the first episode, she jumps on and she's like, look, I don't know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. I just like me some Kari Payton. We're
Yeah.
gonna see what's going on. This show may not be for me. And then like episode 4, I think it is. So in our show, the first 5 episodes are kind of like a prologue. They're kind of like a self-contained story to get you into the
Mhm.
flow and the vibe. And then episode 6, it all kicks off. And in episode 4, someone in our cast, I think David Lee Huynh, who plays Vin in our show, says something, and she says, well, then why don't you make a perception check? Which is like a very specific Dungeons and Dragons thing. And I messaged her on Instagram to be like, hey, did we teach you the game? Like you
Yeah.
said you don't know Dungeons and Dragons. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that's sort of how we feel about the show is like you don't need to know a thing about Dungeons and Dragons,
Mhm.
except like there are dice and we're not scripted. That's all you really need to know. And everything else you'll learn in real time. What matters is the story. Because for us, when you play Dungeons and Dragons at home, it takes 2 to 4 hours. It's very long. There's
Mhm.
a lot of math and rules and things like that that you learn over time as you play. But for us, we didn't want to have to teach people that. So we edit out anything but the story. We just leave the story that we all made together. So we recorded the whole show in 10 days. It's 22 episodes. Each one's an hour long. We filmed 2 Monday to Fridays. We recorded like 3 episodes a day on average. And we had, when we were done recording, 63 hours of footage
Mhm.
that edited down into what is essentially 17 and a half hours when the dust settles. And so basically every episode is like a little over 3 hours of footage edited into a 48-minute
Yeah.
package. So we're removing anything where you would need to know the rules or need to do the math, right? Like we're just cutting out the things that get in the way of the story that if you were playing at home, they're vital to playing the game, but not to enjoying my TV show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyone can really love our show. We did a little informal audience survey, and a significant amount of the people watching our show have either never played Dungeons and Dragons before or have discovered the game through us
Mhm.
or haven't played in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so we really do say our show is for anyone. And if you enjoy the game, we would love to help you start playing because it's our favorite game in the world.
What did you think of the movie?
Oh my God, I love it. I love
Oh,
that movie. I saw that movie 5 times in theaters. That
really?
movie rocks. And it rocks because it's a good movie independently of Dungeons and Dragons. It's just fun. The
Yeah.
plot's fun, the script's fun, the characters are fun, the acting's fun. That I love Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, there are Easter eggs anywhere. But like, I don't know, my in-laws saw the movie and they were like, this movie's awesome. Is that what Dungeons and Dragons is? And I was
Yeah.
like, kinda.
It's kind of like it.
It's like that if you imagine it.
Yeah.
We talk a lot in at the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons is telling stories with your friends. That's it. There's no winners, there's no losers. It's just you and your friends sitting down, if you're me, with a bunch of beers and telling stories with your friends. It's a blast. You're using your imagination, you're coming up with things that are fun. There's heartbreak, there's drama, there's comedy. It's so fun. And we try to bring all of that to the TV show without you having to know the game to enjoy it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, because I don't know if the movie was, accurate towards the game because I don't play. But I was like,
Sure.
it's just like a popcorn movie. It's fun.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be anything more than really fun. And it is really fun.
Yeah. I may try it. But you said it's like 4 hours. I have to find someone to
You,
play
you,
with.
I mean, there's a thing called Adventurers League.
Mhm.
So in Jersey, you've got a few. There's actually a new one in Jersey City. I don't know where you're based, but called Dragon Books.
Mhm.
It's a new game shop that just opened in Jersey City that
Okay.
I'm very high on. I like them. But there's a thing called Adventurers League where local game shops will just run D&D and you just show up, they'll teach you the game, you can play with the people who are there. If you like it, you can come back next week. If you want to play with your friends, you can go get started. I highly recommend Adventurers League if you want to like try out the game.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
Is there a video game for it?
There is Baldur's Gate 3, which
Okay.
just won all of the awards, every
Oh.
award known to man. That game is made by Larian.
Mhm.
Larian Studios made a very compelling and exciting video game that won every award last year that
Ooh.
is using Dungeons and Dragons as the basis of the
Okay.
game. So Baldur's Gate 3 is a really great way to
Mhm.
start to learn Dungeons and Dragons because all the spells are there and you just start to learn it by playing the game and it does the math for you and things like that. There isn't like there isn't like a Dungeons and Dragons game that I would say perfectly
Mhm.
replicates the experience, but Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the best games I've ever played, and at its core, it's just Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, sounds awesome. Okay, so there are like these characters. Well, like, is there a main character like we saw in the movie, or
Sure. So in the movie, you have what we would call a party. You have the Chris Pine, the Michelle
right?
Rodriguez, the Justice Smith. Is that his name?
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, the guy who played the wizard, and then I don't remember her name, the druid. But
Hmm.
you have that. We would call that a party, and
Hmm.
each of those people are a main character. So basically, every player plays one character, and then there is a person who controls the narrative. And they are not in Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. They would be like the screenwriter in
Okay.
the world of the thing,
Hmm.
and they are responsible for taking these characters on a journey where each character gets their own moments to shine. They play all the other characters. If you're playing at home, that person is usually writing. So, for instance, in my show, Brian David Judkins, our dungeon master, wrote the story that we then play.
Right.
But you can also just buy pre-generated, like, start here, read this, do this, take your characters here. So if you're learning to play, you don't have to write your own.
Hmm.
Once you get more experienced, you absolutely can, because then you can do anything. But a
Yeah.
really fun part of Encounter Party is, so I'm a producer of this show with Brian. We have a production company called Play Plus One, which is our film production company that partnered with Entertainment One to make this TV show.
Hmm.
And I produce a lot of media. I produce podcasts, produce TV, film, theater, and I pitch a lot of things. And in my pitches, I'm the one saying, like, here's what the show is, here's what it's gonna do, here's how we're gonna do it. With this show, we'd get pretty far down the pitch and someone go, great, what is it? And I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna leave. And I would drop the call because I wasn't allowed to know what the story was
Hmm.
prior to filming because it's improvised. So I can't know what's coming. And
Yeah.
so this is the first time in my entire career where, like, I had to be unaware of the show I was actively selling. And I
Yeah.
would literally say to Brian, like, I'm going to drop the call. Text me when I can come back. And Brian would have to then work with Hasbro and work with Wizards of the Coast to make this show. But the first moment of the show, this is not a spoiler because it's literally 6 seconds into the show. Um, we were told prior to arrival, we were all going to start on a boat and none of us knew each other. That's what we knew coming into the show. And
Hmm.
in the very first moment of the show, Brian says, roll initiative, which in Dungeons and Dragons means fight time. And all of us went, wait, what the hell is happening? And then Brian then attacked us with this massive, terrifying monster where two of us are already dead.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, and we're all like, what's happening? And then right as we all basically lose, it like disappears. And then Brian's like, you all start on a boat. And we're all like, what just happened? And Brian was like, you all experienced that. And we were like, great, how? And he was like, that is for you to, that is the plot of the TV show. That is for you to figure out.
Yeah. It's
And
so
the rest
cool
of
that's
the show
improv.
is us having to be like, to sometime in the future, if that was real, and we don't know if it's real the way Brian wrote it, we literally do not know from day one if it was a metaphor, if it was a
Hmm.
dream, if it was a, flash forward. We know nothing. But if it's a flash forward, two of the characters are going to die.
Hmm.
And that's what we knew on day one of filming. And then for 10 days, it was us following plots and uncovering mysteries and solving puzzles to try and figure out how we could keep two of our compatriots from dying.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I thought it's the improv is crazy because I don't think I would be able to think of I'd be like, cut.
it is.
Can I start over?
It is quite literally the most exhausting thing I've ever done. It's the most fun acting job I've ever had. No question. It's so fun. There's no better job as an actor than, hi, would you like to play a game with your friends? Like, it's just, I cannot begin to describe how good that gig is. But I have never, on any acting gig I've ever done, gone home more exhausted because it's just 8 straight hours of
Hmm.
playing this game with a 45-minute break for lunch.
Yeah.
And in the podcast, there's no video, so no one actually knows this. But whenever two people are having a scene and it's not me, I would put my head on my desk. Like, I would take a nap because I don't need to be involved. I can recharge for when I do. In the TV show, there's 9 cameras filming everything. So I have to be very involved the whole time. I got to be reacting and talking and laughing and
Yeah.
joking. And that's crucial. So I also edited the TV show.
Hmm.
And it's my job to get it from 3.5 hours per episode to 48 minutes. And the only way I do that is say, like, hey, I'm going to cut 30 minutes of nonsense here. Look at someone who's not talking for like 6 seconds to
Yeah.
cover the cut. And that only works if that person is listening intently.
Yeah.
And so like half the time we would get notes from the director who was watching all the screens being like, hey, all of you have dead looks on your face. And we need you to like roll it back and fix that.
Yeah. That's so funny. Is it coming back for another?
Oh man, I wish I could tell you that I have an answer to
Oh,
that question. We are currently in negotiations and
mhm,
exploring future seasons. Season one is not the end of the story. We've
mhm,
got much more to go. You know, our podcast, the story was 3 seasons. We pitched this show as a similar length.
mhm.
And then if we were to get renewed after 3 seasons, we could all make new characters and start a new story and things like that.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you that there has been a second season greenlit yet,
Mhm.
but I can tell you that we're talking about it.
Ooh, okay. Well, if you need like a card girl, round one.
Heard. Yeah, great, great, great.
I'm available.
Cool. Available for hire. Consider
Yeah.
yourself put on the list.
Yes. I work for peanuts.
Great news. It's been really interesting because, you know, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff here in terms of like, I can't give you hard numbers. That would violate my contract. But I can say that in the world of television, this is like the fastest production possible. I don't know that there is another media property alive that is fiction. There are plenty of like nonfiction documentary reality show where you could do this, but a fiction story where you can record 22-hour-long episodes in 10 days. I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe this new Paul Scheer show that's coming out, I forget what it's called, but it's a multicam, fully improvised sitcom. Maybe
Mhm.
that show, because that is doing what we did, just we did it at a table and they're doing it like friends on a
Yeah.
soundstage. But like that might be the only real thing because, you know, we say our show is like watching the writer's room and it's also the story
Mhm.
because we are the writers. We are writing it as we say it, right? These lines have never been written before. We're thinking them up in real time and the show just keeps going. So sometimes you watch 10 straight minutes of unedited show. That doesn't exist in normal television,
Right.
certainly not in fantasy fiction, you know?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so that's really the fun part is if we were to really hone this down and work with Hasbro and create like the right environment, we could do 2 seasons a year. Takes 2 weeks to film, you know?
Yeah. Sounds good. Anything else you have coming down the pike other than we're talking about the Dungeons and Dragons new season?
When does this release?
I don't know. I gotta edit it.
I am working on a show. It is currently untitled and I can't tell you what it is, but
Okay.
I am producing. I'm not starring in or anything like that.
Mhm.
I am the showrunner producer on a horror movie trivia game show podcast for
Ooh.
a pretty major TV film studio that I am
Ooh.
making in partnership with Realm Media, which
Okay.
is a podcast company here in New York. I can't tell you much more than that, except it's going to be like a hybrid. It's going to be like a hybrid game show audio drama where 3 contestants will compete in games of horror movie trivia and improv to impress a haunted house. And at the
Okay.
end of the show, the haunted house will deem one of them worthy and eat the souls of the other two.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It's weird, it's fun, it's
Yeah.
wacky. The team we've assembled is absolutely incredible to make this show. I can't tell you the name of it yet. I can't tell you the studio I'm working on it with besides
Okay.
Realm. And if this comes out before it's announced, I think I've been vague enough to not
Yeah.
violate any of my NDAs.
Well, that just means everyone just has to follow you to stay up to date. We're gonna put all that in the description,
Appreciate it.
and as well as where to watch the show, the Discord, all of
Right.
that. So
Come on in, enjoy. We call our crew the party people. It's a
yes,
great time. We got this great crew all over the world who are watching the show, listening to the podcast, doing all the things. And I really would love for you all to check it out and see what's going on. 22 episodes. It can be your new favorite watch right now. And when was the last time someone greenlit a 22 episode fiction television show. There's a
No.
reason everyone's obsessed with Suits right now on Netflix. It's because it's 22 episodes long.
Everything is 8 or 10 episodes, and you're
Yeah,
like,
no, come
yeah.
come on a real adventure. 22 episodes right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. You seem awesome. I'm really glad to meet you. Let's make
Yeah.
more weird, fun things here in the tri-state area.
Yes, I'm gonna be in them DMs like, hey, Ned, remember me?
Yo, let's go. I got you.
All right. Thank you. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna talk to y'all later. All right.